pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. It's nice to have company. We're going to start off with a site plan application of 493 Sagaponic Main Street, Sagaponic LLC. Rich Warren is our environmental consultant. Would you like to start off with it?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
What are we going to put up the screen?
Maybe if you could put up the Aris Design landscape plans, because they're probably the one that, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's probably the easiest one to show, either that page.
And Rich, I'm sorry, just before you start, could we just make sure, it's very hard to hear sometimes on Zoom, so if we could just, we're chatting down, it would help the board. Thank you very much.
And you can hear me, right?
Pardon?
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Rich Warren of InterScience. I'm a planning consultant for the village of Sagaponic. I've been asked to look at the application for 493 Sag Main Street, which is an application for the construction of a new single-family residence on a parcel that is currently without a home. There was a home on this property that apparently burned down a number of years ago. On the towards the rear of the property, there's an existing garage structure with a little bit of an appendage that looks like it had been used for some measure of storage. There's a wood burning stove inside. The place is open. It's a little dilapidated, but it is a pre-existing accessory structure that's on the property close to the property line. In this drawing, it's in the position just to the north of the swimming pool, right where the arrow is in the middle. I guess that's my arrow.
Can you hold on one second? Board, can you hear him? Not too well. Okay, speak it up there, Rich.
Oh, okay, I'll talk a little louder. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an application to the village pursuant to section 245-65F, which requires site plan approval from the Board of Trustees for any excavation or fill on property that changes the natural grade of the site. This site, you've got a sloping piece of property. It slopes from east to west. Highest is back behind the tennis court. Lowest is down by Sag Main Street. They're intending to construct a two-story single-family residence of about 7,051 square feet, a 330 square foot garage, a 20 by 60 square foot sunken a swimming pool with a spa and a tennis court. They have in the center of the property a dining area, fire pit. There's a sunken courtyard right behind the house that gains access to the basement. They have a full basement below the home that is finished. The regrading of this sloping property is significant, I believe, although in terms of the plans, they call for the removal of 1,036 cubic yards of material. So there's not fill coming to the property. That's essentially an excavation on the site to make this property work. The tennis court in the back is proposed to be sunken. Those red lines you see are proposed contour lines. So it slopes down on the east and west side. There are retaining walls on the north side and the south side of the tennis court. This property is in an R120 zoning district, which requires 120,000 square feet of lot area. It's an 82,926 square foot parcel, so it's non-conforming in the zoning district as a single and separate parcel. It's entitled to setback relief for the principal structure. And you have the existing garage building that's in the location of the proposed pool house is considered non-conforming as well to setback, which I'll talk about in a moment. I did do an inspection of the property. The property is overgrown. There are a number of large trees on the property. I put my head inside the existing garage building. You can see it's pretty dilapidated, but it is still there and it's functional, I guess, to an extent. There's another building that's not shown on the survey that is immediately to the south of that garage building, abutting the southern property line. It looks like it was installed there sometime in the past few years. It has power to it because there's lights on the outside of it. It's not shown on the survey, it's not shown on the plan. I've asked in my report that the applicant provide some clarity on that building. In terms of the principal residence, and it's entitled to the relief in the code on section 245-53E, which is essentially the 4/10 rule. So you get automatic setback relief for non-conforming lots that are pre-existing. The residence that's proposed here complies with the setback requirements that the code specifies. For the conversion of the garage to the pool house, section 245-53D says that a non-conforming building or structure that's devoted to a conforming use, which would be the garage, may be enlarged, reconstructed, altered, repaired, restored, in whole or in part, so long as the degree of nonconformity is not increased. That's what's occurring here. They've actually changed the size of the accessory structure, and for the pool house, it made it a little bit smaller. And while it doesn't meet the 30-foot required setback from the property line, it is actually a little bit further away from the property line than what's existing. I talked with John Woodsma about that, and he confirmed that this is something that's compliant with the requirements of the village code. The tennis court, as you probably know, that's not me. Do you hear that, or is that just me?
No, it was somebody that just came on. Go ahead.
Okay. The tennis court is shown at a 14-foot setback from the property line, and that's non-conforming to your current tennis court setback requirements. However, this tennis court was issued a variance in 1975 by the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals in this location at this setback. And the village attorneys advised, and I spoke with John Woodsman about this, as well as Rhodey, that the tennis court, even though it was never constructed, the variance survives, and therefore it is eligible to remain at that setback. However, in meeting with John Woodsman about this, he did indicate that because it's the construction of a new playing court in the village, even though it's eligible for that setback relief that it got from the Zoning Board of Appeals, it still needs to be sunken 4 feet, which is what the code says, that it has to be sunken 4 feet measured from the lowest adjacent grade. Otherwise, it's subject to a 150-foot setback requirement. So he will require this to be sunken 4 feet. At the present time, the tennis court is designed is only sunken 3 feet. So there'll have to be a modification there. The plans provided don't show a sanitary system for this home. It's not anywhere on the survey. It's not on the site plan prepared by Aris Design. We recommend that that be shown because this is a plan that deals with grading on the site. So it'd be important to know what happens relative to grades for the sanitary system for the home. And also there is plumbing fixtures in the pool house. So that is either going to be connected to a sanitary system to the house or have its own separate sanitary system. So they should provide that. Relative to grading, again, the tennis court should be depressed an additional foot, but what they should do is they should be careful to look at the plan about the lowest adjacent grade, which would be on the western side of the tennis court, make sure it is set 4 feet below that, and figure out how the grading works for that. The retaining walls that they show on the north and south side of the court are only 3 feet high. They would probably be 4 feet, meaning they're going to depress the court a little bit further. The area where the swimming pool and the patio are, that's a relatively flat area on the site right now. There's relatively minimal grading taking place in that area. There are a couple of large trees. This drawing shows some trees. I don't know if they are the existing trees or not to be preserved. We've asked for information relative to that, whether they intend to preserve some of the large trees on site. After you leave that lawn area, you can see those red contour lines again. It drops down to another plateau, so to speak, where the alfresco dining and the fire pit area are, and then it drops down even further to a courtyard that's behind the house. That courtyard is about 4 feet below existing grade. So you have this this recontouring that is lowering the elevations, all leading towards the courtyard, which is in this kind of center part of the home, which I think does lead to some question about, grading and drainage for this house. And I'm sure Kevin will talk about that when he discusses his report for this. The street side of the residence, there is further excavation taking place because you can see that there is a parking court immediately in front of the house, but then there is a driveway that is closer to the street that has a retaining wall on the outside that is actually excavating down to have parking underneath the house at the ground level, in the basement level. So that is actually the topography is dropping down in that hole as well. There's about it looks to me from looking at the elevations on the survey and the proposed elevations in that area, there's about a 10-foot cut below the existing topographic elevation to the parking area that's down at the lowest level. The architectural plans nor the site plans identify any egress wells. The basement is to be fully improved. There are some habitable spaces down there. There are some access points as well. Access coming out of the garage out to that parking court on the street side. And then there's a sunken court in the southeast corner of the house. I would just suggest that the applicant take the architectural plans and the site plan to meet with John Woodsma to confirm that no egress wells are going to be required for the utilization of the basement as habitable space, because if they are, they should be shown on the plan, and the respective, clear grading should be shown thereon. They've got a drainage plan prepared that shows drainage with 3-inch code requirement. You'll hear from Kevin relative to that. Again, there is some concern relative to the shaping of the topography on this site and whether or not that's going to be directing water towards the home in this lower sunken courtyard in the back. The other thing that I would note that I didn't put in my report, but there was an article in Newsday, I think it was yesterday morning, that was talking about the increased frequency of storms and the increase in higher rainfall amounts. And in as much as this looks like it has a capture area right behind the house with only 3 inches of storage, you wonder whether or not they shouldn't be beefing up the storage or trying to find an outlet for water to go if we have that 4 inches of rain. Just a couple of weeks ago, we did have a 4-inch rainstorm out here that would happen within a couple of hours. So the drainage plan, again, is something that should be looked at carefully. So prior to approval, I've recommended a number of things to be done. They should clarify the status of the existing structure that is located opposite the swimming pool that is not shown on any plans. They should confirm that on their plans that all the retaining walls, steps that are shown throughout the lawn area, the fire pit, the alfresco dining area, that they're calculated in terms of lot coverage. And if they have questions about that, they should talk to John Woodsma about the materials. It doesn't say what's underneath the fire pit or the alfresco dining area. The hatching would make one think that it is gravel, but it's not notated there. So that's something that should be shown. And the driveway that's leading down to the lower parking area also is not shown. It says a gravel driveway court, but I would think that probably the driveway going down, which is a slope, is probably not going to be gravel. So one would have to look and see how that relates.
Fun, London. I didn't know you were in the car all morning.
Can you please mute yourself, Maxwell Spooner?
So someone should just, the designer should just confirm with John Woodsma all the areas that are impervious to make sure that they are included in the total coverage calculation. They should confirm whether any of the large trees that they identified in the survey to be remain, because they do have some large beeches, some of them that are 48 inches in caliper, which are significant trees. It would be nice to see them saved if they could, but that's not really part of the drainage grading site plan review process, but they are natural features on the property. They should revise the plan to reflect the tennis court meeting the requirements of 4 feet below from the lowest adjacent grade. The sanitary system should be shown on the plan. The plan doesn't show a pool dry well, nor a pool filter, nor a pool fence. So they should show that information on their plan to show how the pool enclosure is going to work for this. They should confirm with the building inspector about egress windows for the basement and make sure they're in the calculations if necessary. And the confirmation with the village engineer on the acceptability of the recontouring and the drainage plan. This property being over 80,000 square feet in area, and the extent of the changes here would dictate that they would need to do a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is required if you're disturbing more than 43,560 square feet of lot area. And it would appear to me that they're clearly doing that. So they should be thinking about having a SWIP plan that will be reviewed by the village engineer. My last comment was really kind of an administrative one. I just noted that the application documents had different names on it. And, there should be some clarity, and the village clerk can talk with the applicant about whether or not they need to make sure that the applications, the deed provided had Carolyn LaFaro that was provided to us. The application documents are in the name of 493 Sagaponic LLC. The survey is provided in the name of ADG Development. I know that there was a time when there was a concern by the village attorney about making sure that everything was matching. So I don't know whether or not that's something that still needs to be done or not, but it's just an administrative issue. It's a type 2 action under SECRA. I think that the issues here are resolvable, but my biggest concern relative to the grading that's taking place is to make sure that, number one, adjacent property owners are going to be protected when this activity takes place, and that the drainage plan that they've provided is not something that's going to be deleterious to either neighbors or to themselves, because they've kind of designed the house down in a hole with the drainage that's being directed towards a surface flow. So with that, that's my report. And if the applicant has any questions along the way, I'm available. They can pick up the phone and call me, and I can go through it with them if they need it.
Rich, I just note one point. You noted in the report that you had a non-conforming status, and that non-conforming status was only because there were accessory structures, correct, that were retained after the fire damage principal structure was damaged or removed.
Yeah, so the garage building that's in the location of the pool house, you now have an accessory building there without a principal structure, so it's non-conforming in terms of, I guess, its use. And it's also non-conforming relative to the setback from the northern property line. But the provision of the code allows you to enlarge, construct, reconstruct, alter, as long as you don't increase the degree of non-conformity. So I think that's okay, but they do have non-conformities, and they also have a structure that doesn't even seem to be accounted for in the materials that they provided to the village.
Thanks.
Yep.
Mayor, I note that, we'll have Kevin's presentation, but I note that the applicant's attorney, Mr. Benicasa, is here, his people. We might want to have Kevin's presentation and then see if Mr. Benicasa wants to bat last, so to speak.
Right. Okay.
Do any board members have questions? No? Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Rich. Hang on though. Kevin Peterman, you're up next.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Kevin,
Okay.
which plan do you want me to put up?
Maybe sheet 2 in the same set that you have up.
Okay. That it?
Perfect. Yep, that's the one. Thank you. Kevin Peterman from LKMA as the village engineer. Thank you, Rich, as always, for your thorough review and discussion of the project. Very helpful. Our review focused on the preliminary grading and drainage plan that you see before you right now, and the site drainage details prepared by Reyes Design, dated August 14th, 2024. As Rich mentioned, the existing topography on the site results in a natural stormwater sheet flow from the east side of the site to the west side of the site, where the east side of the site is approximately 14 feet higher than the street. From an engineering perspective, we offer several comments on the plans, and I'd like to outline a few of these comments for the board. Regarding the tennis court, I know Rich touched on this already, but very quickly, village code requires the tennis court to be sunken 4 feet below the lowest adjacent grade, and it also must include an acoustic barrier. The current design shows the court sunken only 3 feet with no acoustic barrier. We recommend that the applicant revise accordingly. Number two, we recommend that the applicant depict the location of the proposed sanitary system. This is also something that Rich mentioned. They kind of indicate on the plans that the sanitary system will be located in between the north property line and the residence. It is not much room. It is kind of narrow in there, and there is some substantial regrading happening. And I know the health department has some requirements on the maximum grades, the maximum pitch that is allowed above a sanitary system. And so we would just ask that that be depicted on the plans, and also that the pool house, whether that's going to have a designated sanitary system for itself or whether that will be connected to the main sanitary system for the residents, but that that be shown as well. Regarding utilities, the provided plans do not appear to include any existing or proposed utilities. No gas service, no water service, no electric. We recommend that these be added to the plans. The grading plans depict a lower garage elevation. So we've got two garages, an upper garage and a lower garage in the residence. The grading plans depict a lower garage elevation of 15.4, but the proposed basement plans provided by the architects depict a garage elevation of 14.5. So we would just ask that that be reviewed and clarified as needed. And regarding the test hole, so a little bit interesting here. So the provided test hole was advanced to only elevation 17.1. So the geotechnical contractor who did the soil boring advanced the boring down. So in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, Rody, there's a soil boring log. Yes, it's that, yeah, that shaded box over there on the right side of the screen. Yep. So that ground elevation at 34.1 is where they conducted the soil boring, and they conducted it down to elevation 17.1. And so we know what the soil conditions are 17 feet below grade, and we also know that they did not hit groundwater 17 feet below grade. But we're proposing, or the applicant rather, is proposing a garage down at elevation 14.6, and they're proposing, you know, a drainage system that could have a lower elevation of around elevation 6. And so the applicant has not provided any sort of soil information on what is happening down in that area where, you know, what is the soil conditions down where we are providing drainage in the area in the front of the house, and where's the groundwater elevation. And the reason that those matter, at least from, you know, a stormwater perspective, is we want to make sure that the applicant is able to maintain a 2-foot clearance from the bottom of the drainage leaching structures to the groundwater elevation. And so what that means is that we recommend that the applicant conduct an additional soil boring that goes down to the depth of at least the bottom of the stormwater leaching pools or groundwater elevation, whichever occurs first. That kind of leads into our recommendation to label the bottom elevations of all stormwater leaching structures on site, so they can demonstrate that the structures will be placed in adequately leaching soils and maintain a 2-foot clearance to groundwater. The grading design does appear to prevent stormwater sheet flow onto adjacent properties. However, it does appear to direct stormwater toward the building foundation on the north, on the south, and the east sides. And so we do see a French drain. So if we zoomed in, we kind of see a dashed line along the north foundation wall, and that same dashed line along the south foundation wall. And so the applicant is proposing French drains here. Generally, we don't like to direct stormwater to foundations. We don't want any sort of water pooling against foundation. You know, the applicant is trying to mitigate that by putting in a French drain and directing stormwater away from the foundation, but nonetheless, it is not advisable. And, you know, that's just for the record, so the applicant can take that and do, you know, what they see fit. It's also not entirely clear how all of the French drains are connected to leaching structures, especially on the north side of the building. So we'd ask for some clarification on that. There was some error observed in the rim elevations on the south and southwest of the fire pit area. So the rims labeled on the plan would suggest that the elevations of the drainage structures are floating in the air. I don't believe that would be the intent, so we're asking the applicant to review and revise that. The trench drain to the south of the pool house does not appear to be connected to a drainage leaching structure, so we ask that some additional information and detail be provided there. And we're asking for clarity whether there is a trench drain in the tiered retaining wall system near the sunken court, kind of in that area near the hot tub. The symbol they have depicted there in the sunken court just to the east of the house. I'm sorry, Rhodey. So they have that sunken court, and then they have an HT, yeah, just south of your mouse. Yes, right there. So in this area in here, it looks like there could be some sort of trench drain, but it's not connected to any sort of drainage structure. So we would ask that the applicant clarify that area a little bit. Regarding roof leader downspouts, so the applicant does provide a drainage system that accounts and provides storage for a 3-inch rainfall event. However, the roof leader downspout locations, we can't figure them out. I can't see where these roof drains are coming out of the building and connecting to drainage structures. So we would just ask that those be labeled a little more clearly. Drainage tributary areas. So in this plan, the applicant did try to label drainage tributary areas and how they correspond to their drainage calculations. And so we can see that there's a drainage area 3, there's a drainage area 4. We're just asking that a separate map be provided so that we can easily follow along and check their drainage calculations and sort of separate out some of their subcatchment areas as needed. Additionally, we're looking for some surface material details for all of the hardscape elements, as these were not included. So details for things like the driveway, what type of material will that be? The walkways, the patios, the tennis court, the pool patio. Additionally, some retaining wall details. There will be a substantial amount of retaining walls on the site, so we're looking for some details on those, including the retaining wall and the acoustic barrier around the tennis court. The application does include some proposed stairs across the property, and they vary. So we see some stairs which could be built in concrete, they could be built out of earth, they could be timber. It's not very clearly labeled on the plans, at least wasn't clear to me. So we're asking for some additional information and details on those. And Rich kind of touched on this, but the site is approximately 1.9 acres. Based off of the scope of work defined and depicted in these plans, it does appear that most of the property will be disturbed. And when you are disturbing more than an acre, in this case 1.9 acres, it seems, you would be required to submit a SWIP. And so the plan does not clearly delineate or quantify the limit of clearing and ground disturbance. So we would ask that that be clarified and depicted. And it seems that they will be required to submit and prepare a SWIP report for review and approval. That leads me into the soil erosion and sediment control measures. The applicant did not provide any soil erosion or sediment control measures, things like silt fences, construction entrances, material stockpile details, drainage inlet protection. The set of plans that was submitted lacked all of that. So we would request that the applicant provide a soil erosion and sediment control plan with appropriate details. Regarding the earthwork calculations, so we see a pretty substantial amount of cut from the property, about 1,036 cubic yards. It's a little bit challenging to really check the accuracy of that without detailed calculations. And so the applicant, I believe it's on the left, the bottom left of this sheet, did provide a summary of earthwork calculations. We're asking for a little bit more detailed breakdown of how these were calculated. And so in the breakdown, we're asking the calculations to separate the building, the patios, the stormwater systems, the sanitary systems, the pools. That way we can very clearly check all of their calculations as far as earthwork is concerned. While we're on earthwork, they're reporting a net cut of about 1,036 cubic yards of material that may require an export permit from the village building inspector. Outside of these comments, I am available to answer any questions the board may have.
One, Kevin, at least one from me, but on the test hole that was done on May 3rd, 2024, and you recommended it was set out at 17.1. I do note the lowest elevation at 15.4 on the basement. Do you have a recommended depth for the test hole, the revised test hole?
I would say at least until you hit groundwater. We need to know where groundwater is. And so, the way they're showing on the plans, they've got their basement elevation at 15.4. I just did a quick look. So Long Island depth to groundwater viewer gives us an idea of where to expect groundwater. It's not by any means a design standard, but it gives you an idea of where you can expect to hit. And so I used that resource to try to figure out where would we expect groundwater here. And I think we should be expecting groundwater around elevation 6. And when I'm looking at the drainage design provided, especially in the front of the house where the garage is, it looks like that drainage leaching structure wants to have a bottom elevation of around 6. And so without having the applicant prove where groundwater is, maybe they were unaware of what the actual groundwater elevation was. And so setting the bottom elevation of that leaching structure in front of the house seemed inconsequential to them. But I think that it's a concern. And I think that maybe the soil properties aren't a concern. It seems like we've got mixed sand with gravel, which is generally good leaching material. But the location and the elevation of groundwater is the concern. And so I would recommend that they proceed with an additional soil boring, at least until they hit groundwater elevation, which we expect around elevation 6.
Thank you. Sure. Does the board have questions?
It's an observation. I mean, it's nice to see the property finally being developed where it's been empty for a long time, but it seems like there's a lot going on in this now piece of property. And, certainly would be concerned about the drainage and septic system as it relates to its name. Just fine.
Would you, the applicant, like to ask questions or comments? I know you'll get back to us probably next month or sometime after that, but you've got the consultants here if you'd like to ask.
Steve Brian, good to see you, Carl. Carl Benacasa, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, for the applicant. First, I want to thank Mr. Warren and Mr. Peterman for their thorough review. I know they did it on short notice. We did receive these comments today, and so we're going to need some time to respond to them all. I would note that the comments in whole talk a lot about information that's required and that can easily be provided by the applicant. What is important to note is that they acknowledge that the home does comply with zoning in all respects. There is no concerns with the placement of the primary structures. No, not part of the review, there's no concern with certainly the appearance, which is the review of the architectural review board. I'm going to let Mr. Naroda say a few words as he developed the landscape plans, and we'll be doing the grading plan in the SWIP. But just a few comments that Mr. Warren raised. One, there is a structure that is not that is currently located on the premises that is not seen in these plans. That structure is a temporary holding bay. A construction trailer, and it will be removed. So it's not part of these plans, and it won't be a part of the property.
And the building inspector was aware of that.
He was aware of that. We had a discussion with John. As for the titled ownership, due to unique circumstances with closing, Ms. LaFaro is actually principal of the record owner, which is the LLC. ADG Development is the developer. So, Ryan, if you want them all to be consistent, we can do that very easily. I have the deeds to the LLC, and I certainly will get the plans updated to the perfect. Thank you. Steve, you want to say that?
Good afternoon, Steve Road with Harris Design. Thank you, appreciate it.
Can you just spell your last name?
NIURODA. We thank you for your comments. Just general for the grading plan. As was mentioned, it's a 14-foot grade change going from west to east. So in that, we're trying to create terraces, trying to minimize the impact on the site and surrounding terrain as much as we can. We did preserve trees up around the pool area. There are the black circles there, just to the right of the pool area, between the tennis court and the pool area. We're doing as much as we can to preserve trees and restore and keep the natural green as much as we can. As the house, the finished floor elevation or proposed finished floor relates to the street, that was a little challenging for us to work that out. So that's where we understand the comments about the flow back toward the house, and we are doing our best to green and also catch out. So we did just receive these comments, so we'll review. I know that we need a deeper test hole, and with that, our invert elevations will be updated to show that in relationship to the groundwater.
So I think with that, we're just going to huddle back up and address these comments. One question I did have, given the nature of the comments, which are in many ways technical and just requiring additional information, would the board be opposed if we were to proceed to the ARB? With the design?
How much time do you think you need to update the plans to get the information you need? I know you just got it this afternoon, but.
We need about 7 days.
Oh,
7 to 10 days, yeah.
okay. And we can do it quick. We're gonna check to see when the ARB.
October, well, that would be the October one, which would be October 28th. Our next meeting is October 16th.
So, yeah. So I think you might want to just have the 30-day adjournment in front of this board. If there is no objection, they can proceed to ARB subject to approval of this board on October 16th. That's a very quick turnaround. So on the comments, so it's
A lot of that has been worked out, it's just not being shown.
fine. Okay, all right. So board is
So
having
we'll
objection. They have
adjourn
permission.
this until the October
16th
16th meeting.
No objection for us.
They have permission to go to ARB subject to.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Just need a
Rich.
motion on that.
Yeah,
Just need a motion.
just want to let Rich and Kevin go. Hey, Kevin, thank you very much for your comments. Rich, thank you. You guys are off for the day. Go to lunch, dinner, whatever, go to the beach.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll tell the boss I'm going to the beach.
Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Talk soon.
so long. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn this to the October 16th meeting. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Let's see, next on the agenda, minutes, they're not ready. Correspondence from the town police department, that's been reformatted and it's been difficult with the reusable form, so that's not ready. So we're on to Gibson Beach, which I think hopefully a lot of people are here for.
Can't hear you.
I will try better. The reason Gibson Beach comes up is because for the last 2 years that I've been there, I've heard numerous complaints about the conditions there. So at some point, you have the feeling that you should take action and do something. In terms of what the town has been doing there for us, they provide a couple carbon trash receptacles for part of the year. I know a lot of times they overflow because they're not the capacity. The town does empty them quite frequently. But they take them away at the end of the season. One of our residents 2 years ago noticed this and offered to, and has for the last 2 seasons, provided trash pickup at the beach at his own expense, which is, I guess, the kind of action you get from somebody who really loves the place. Last week, I found out that actually he's been sending his paper down there to pick up trash in the area.
Gotta be.
Excuse me, if you are not speaking to the board, can you please mute yourself so everybody can hear? Thank you. Sorry, Mayor.
That's the kind of action that somebody who really loves the beach does. Anyway, that's what the town's done. That's the reason this is up here, because people have been complaining. I looked around it to see what other towns do, villages do, actually. It seems like it's pretty typical that in order to pay for certain maintenance improvements at beaches, other villages charge fees for parking to defray some of that cost. I went to the Southampton Press, the Star, talked to reporters, so this is publicized. I was interviewed on WLNG radio to publicize Gibson Beach and that we might take some action there. Also, our clerk sent out emails to 600 something people, letting them know what might be proposed. I actually drew up a proposal very similar to what other villages have done. And not that I think this is something we're going to do, but actually to just hold up a target that people could, kind of fire at and say, this is good, that's bad, get a sense of what's going on. One of the items which seems to be quite controversial, stirred up a lot of sentiment, was the village issuing its own permit for parking there. Parking's the easiest thing to gain revenue on. I know some beaches will charge people to walk on the beach, but that becomes very costly to administer. A parking sticker is something that is much less expensive and labor intensive to issue. Since talking in the last few weeks, talking to a number of residents and getting emails from many residents plus many more non-residents, the beach sticker option is something that's not at all popular. And to me, that's a dead issue. We're not going to issue any parking stickers. We're not going to restrict the parking there. In fact, the only thing that the village has done is inform the town that we are going to, in the future, take over the maintenance there and do a better job of it. Our vehicle and traffic code, which delineates what parking restrictions on, has not been changed. And that as of this moment and into next year, Southampton town stickers are perfectly fine there. Parking restrictions are not changed. Anything about dogs? I know. Please, just let me talk, okay? There's going to be a time period at the end where people can say what they want to say. Train of thought. Yeah, dogs. There's no change in the dogs. That was a hot topic a few years ago. I guess just calling out the people who go there. If you love, so many people have said, hundreds of people have said they just love that beach and they don't want to be pushed down. That's great. I appreciate that. But when I go down there at the end of the day and I see 2 garbage cans overflowed, and I'm just throwing it back a little bit, and I see trash thrown on the ground, you say, well, if somebody took something to the beach and the garbage can is full, wouldn't it be possible that they could take it home with them? A little community action to, not just be pigs. I don't know who's doing it. I'm not blaming anybody, but that's a matter, you have one guy who's paying at his own expense to clean up other people's garbage. And you have other people who simply won't take home what they brought to the beach because whatever. Other thing that's controversial, I think, with amongst our board, having talked to our board members, is the suggestion that we have a porta potty there. To me, it's kind of primeval not to have some kind of facility there. You find porta johns at a tremendous number of the beaches around here. They've got them at Noyak, they've got them scattered around East Hampton and places. I just noticed one appeared at the train station in Bridgehampton. But that's up for discussion too. Anyway, would the board like to add something to this?
Yeah, I would. I think this is a great outcome. I think there was a lot of misinformation. We voted to look into the optionality, and it wasn't that we were going to restrict residents. And obviously, the media and a lot of the sources, on the net, everyone was saying we were making it a private, restricted, non-resident. That was never the case. We needed to notify the town of Southampton under our current IMA on August 1st what options we potentially do. So right now we're coming to the conclusion that with majority of the trustees here that we're going to take over the maintenance of it. I think we can make it. It is a village. It is a village beach. It is our only one. We're going to keep the parking the same. I think that's terrific. And look, we're going to improve the village. We'll put some wooden benches, maybe a wooden bike rack. All this has to be decided, but we certainly need the ability to clean the beaches, obviously more frequently. And we're talking, obviously, the issues that came up and a lot of the residents that were looking to have it. There were a lot of residents that wanted it to be a sticker beach for their use. they claim they cannot use it during the season. And we're just talking about the season, we're not talking all year round. So, you know, we have fiduciary responsibility to look into it, and we got the public's comments. And I think this is a good outcome. I think this is a win-win for everyone.
I'm gonna add just two things. And I'm gonna be probably a little bit more harsh than either of these two when it comes to this. So to me, again, as Dave reiterated, we had the option on August to notify Southampton. We had the option. And the option was to look at what we could do. No one had made any final decisions on anything. And in this world of social media, in this world of media, in this world of trying to hype things up, all of a sudden things sort of, we're going to charge $750. We're going to outlaw anyone who had, you know, a red hat on versus a blue hat. You know, I didn't like that person's nose. That wasn't the case. The case was we wanted to look at different options because the mayor has had 2 years and probably 4 years and probably 6 years of complaints about what it looks like, what, you know, people cleaning up after each other and so on. So I guess it's a long-winded way of basically saying, don't look at the exact and look at the media and talk about the media and do it with a grain of salt. You can always ask us the questions. You know, I get very, very annoyed at sort of the hype that surrounds something that is just not.
I'm against the Porta John big time.
Why?
It's ugly. It's not necessary. Hasn't been around for hundreds of years and continue to be the same.
Nobody drinks coffee, I guess. Okay. Bill, you got it?
Yeah, I will just say this, I was a little confused when the subject was brought up in the beginning. Because I kind of under the impression that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I've been going to that beach 70 years, since I was 7 years old, walking down. And it's the same beach. There are certain things that are near and dear to my heart for Sagaponack. The Sag School being one of them, Sag Store being another one, Bridge being another one, and Gibson Beach. And I didn't want to change it, but there is room to be improved on. For example, a bike rack. That way more residents can take their bike, ride it down there and feel more secure on the bike staying there when they get done with the day. So I would be in favor of the bike racks. I think that's important. There's maintenance that has been done by the village of Sagaponack. For example, the paving, the new stockade fence. There are things that we've done on our own just because we wanted to see it done. And I will tell you that as far as the garbage goes, Mr. McCardle has been more than willing to pick up the garbage and see that the recreation department has maintained that, but it is a little bit inadequate. So we're going to try to improve on that. As far as the parking, it's just, you want a parking place on a Sunday, a busy Sunday, you gotta get ready to go, make your sandwiches. People are coming and going at all times. I don't ever see too many people sitting in their car all day waiting for a parking.
That's good.
So I think the way it is now, it's in great shape, and I'd like to see it continue that way.
Just a comment about one of the, I think it was the website, Gibson Beach 2025, and maybe somewhere else. 41% of the village's revenue comes from state aid. Actually, what it is a return of money that the county and the state take out of the village. The major part of that is a mortgage tax, which we don't assess, but which is based on the size of the mortgages in the village. And since we have some huge houses, some huge expensive houses and mortgages, we generate a lot of mortgage tax. And they're nice enough to send some of that back to us. And the other fairly large return from the state has to do with paving. And as you probably realize, the state has sales tax and highway use taxes, which they collect, which villages do not. And they want to encourage villages to pave roads, and so they return some of that money to us. Okay, that's the end of that. We've got a proposed,
You're just gonna ask them to speak if anybody
no,
wants to.
no, they're at the end of the meeting. It's not too far off. We have a local law proposed for to control composting of non-agricultural products on farm fields. It'll be posted somewhere. I don't know how many people noticed, but in other parts of the I guess the town and county, well, I think Long Compost is involved in it, and many other people. Most notoriously locally was the pit on Millstone Road in Bridgehampton, where they were detecting water pollution from composting that was being done there. And this particular legislation, which there will be a public hearing on, is not aimed at farmers composting agricultural products. It's aimed at farm fields becoming basically dump sites, composting operations for landscape debris, wood chips, ground up stumps, grass clippings. I point people to, well, most people have never been in the pit in Bridgehampton when they used to do it, but there were very strong odors coming out of it. And I think the neighbors complained to the town. They had a number of lawsuits to get that shut down. If you go by exit 69 and the LIE, there's a composting operation there. And at times when they turn the piles, there's quite an odor that comes out of it. I don't think that's something you want going on here in Sagaponic. And so we're gonna have a public hearing. I'd like to set a public hearing for the October 16th meeting to review that possible legislation. Can I get a second on that?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor? And so this will be noticed in the paper, and you can probably, are there copies out there or not yet?
I don't have them out here yet.
Yeah, okay. If somebody's interested, contact the clerk and she will get a copy of it to you.
They'll be on the website too.
Oh, okay. We have an assembly permit application?
Yes,
for wedding?
application for an assembly permit from Gail Berman and Bill Masters. Having a private family wedding party on September 21st from 4 to 12. I guess that's a Saturday. Oh yeah, this Saturday, wow. And they are expecting 200 attendees, 45 people to work it. It's on 2 acres. It's they're using the existing house. There's a proposed additional tent by Sperry Tents. It's the wedding ceremony, dinner and dancing. There is a ballet company, People Pool Ballet Services. The catering company is Great Performance. And they'll have on-site security, CM Consulting. And there will be amplified sound, a 10-piece band and a DJ, outdoor bistro lighting, 2 tents, 66 by 86 and a 32 by 50. And a generator, 145 kilowatt. This is a low-key private family wedding celebration. Any questions?
God bless.
Okay, I make a proposal that we allow this permit.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, David, you're up
Yeah,
next.
sure. So,
What?
I'll be quick. I'm just gonna talk about a project that Mark Landis and I have been working on called Spark, Agroponic Agricultural Reserve Keepsake. It's just a project name. And as we think about a longer term strategy in preserving farm fields and open spaces in the village, Mark and I have been approached people at the Agroponic Land Trust we are working on a collaborative effort to identify certain properties within the village that have development rights that may potentially offer opportunities in the future to purchase. My initial outreach was working with certain board members of the South Fork Land Foundation, which I'm a member of on the board, and specifically Lee Foster was instrumental in arranging these initial meetings. We are beginning a dialogue and formulating potential strategies and raising funds if certain opportunities present themselves. We met with John Halsey, who is the president of the Agroponic Land Trust, and other members of the organization, including Kimberly Cordy, who is the director of conservation planning and also advisory board member of the Community Preservation Fund. We all agree we're dealing with big land value numbers, and it will be challenging to compete with the private sector developers. So if an opportunity presents itself, we will need to work with various foundations, town officials, including to raise funds from the private sector. A case in point was the successful recent purchase of the 27-acre property in Bridgehampton known as the Topping Farm. The Agroponic Land Trust initially purchased the property using money from the Community Preservation Fund of $30 million, and another 18, or roughly 38%, was raised through private donations totaling $48 million. The property was initially listed at around $70 million and was considered and was in the local papers as a once-in-a-generation opportunity for developers. One of the key selling benefits, obviously, of working with nonprofit organizations is that it presents significant tax benefits to a willing seller whose cost basis is probably relatively low. So we'll keep the trustees informed as things progress. There's obviously one piece of property, it's the Schwank property, it's 41 acres off Montauk, that the Community Preservation Fund currently has 2 appraisals in-house, and we're working on that.
I would hope people would email the town, the supervisor more and the board, and encourage them to make a reasonable offer on the Schwank development rights. That's been in front of them for a year and a half. Fortunately, the Schwanks have been willing to sit and wait. They have a full plan to develop that property. And I think they probably don't want to tell us, but they'd rather see it stay as farmland than developed as houses. But I think that the board needs a push. They have the community, they control the community development funds. And they need a little push to get moving on this thing. I'm not sure the Schwanks will wait forever. Anyway, a little help with that would be really good. And also, a lot of people don't realize some of the land which they have views across still has development rights on it. There's a number of old file maps which, if exercised, I think people would find their view cut dramatically. Let's see, we're going to move on to financials, right, Rudy? People are going to speak in a minute. This will go quickly. You ready for me? Okay, I'll make a motion to expend from the general fund an amount of $52,754.61. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to expend from the tree fund $3,045. All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to expend from the trust and agency planning fund $1,875.25. All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to expend from the capital highway fund $4,383.75. All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, from the village hall project fund, $2,250.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, I think we're ready. We're gonna go through the list and ask people to step up and speak. If you could come up to the podium, that'd be a great thing. What? Oh, that's right.
Want to Gibson first? Do Gibson first? Gibson. Yeah, do Gibson first.
Okay.
Okay, the first one I have on the list is Debbie Loeffler, Loeffler. You passing? Okay, she's passing.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to speak.
Lucy Bornstein, I believe this is, or maybe it's Lukey. Bernstein, sorry, looks like an L.
Satisfied.
You're gonna pass. Next one is Tria Giovanni.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Tria Giovanni. I live in Harbor. I'm a resident. Loyal Gibson for the last 30 years. And you know, when I first heard word about some of the proposed changes that were being made, I was obviously upset and concerned. And so we wrote a petition and we have signatures here. Mostly because I think even though some things had not been completely decided, we were concerned that decisions were being made without public comment. And so we made a petition to request a public hearing with regards to decisions being made about Gibson. So largely symbolic, I think, but it's here. And I'm very heartened to hear that you have paid attention to the many letters and the outpouring of support for keeping Gibson accessible. And we certainly appreciate that you would like to make improvements to the facilities and garbage pickup. And I think, you know, that's a great thing. So I'm not 100% clear on what the actual parking changes are, because it says one thing in the paper that it's up this
The
now.
paper's wrong.
No, the paper that you had outside.
This is the proposal.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
that was just a target for people. This is what other villages do. So I wrote it up and said, is this what we want to do?
Okay, so I
Okay,
guess
so
we're not
that's been
clear on,
shot down.
what are you doing for next season? For
Nothing.
No change.
No
So it
change.
is all staying the same.
Yes.
For residents, Southampton residents will be the same sticker,
No change.
no change. Well, we are
Just the way it was always.
pretty much, that's all. we
No
really
change,
want.
less car.
There you go. Well, I'm
Better
sorry
amenities.
that there are many people that are very happy to hear that, and we really appreciate you listening to everybody, and we look forward to seeing you on the beach.
Thank you.
Could I have your phone number? Because when people complain, I want to send them to you.
I'm like the lady in the parking lot that organizes everybody when there is a spot. Trust me, you should see me, you should hire me, actually. No, really, in all seriousness, glad that we've resolved this, and I know that there's a lot of people that feel the same way. And I look forward to next season. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tinka Topping. Well done.
So,
That's good. Hey, Tinka. Roman Roth.
There's still a conversation about the cell phone towers or not?
Yes.
This is Gibson. This is
Oh,
Gibson.
Just keeps-
You signed Roman.
He signed the wrong one. He
Signed the
wants a
wrong
cell
sheet.
tower.
Got it. I'll move
He
you
wants a
over.
cell tower.
Okay, Merrill Sherman. Merrill, get you, there you go, okay.
Hi, my name is Meryl Sherman and I'm 707 Daniels Lane. I just had a quick question about, it's a financial question. A number of years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers came by and refurbished the beaches at, I assume, a tremendous expense. Would that expense be incurred, if and when it ever happened again, would that be incurred by the village of Sectonic, or would that still be incurred by the state, the town of Southampton, or that's a complete unknown at this point?
The town of Southampton, villages do not control that kind of thing.
Great.
That's a special erosion control district is controlled, set up by towns. And there's a board of the property owners who will be taxed by that, who cooperate with the town on making decisions as to what happens and what it costs. So unless you own a beachfront property, you will not see or hear or have any ability to comment on it. Yeah,
Thank you.
right.
Okay. Laura White. Yes. And Matthew Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I just signed it.
Okay. Okay, that's the list for Gibson.
Right, I
assume.
I'm sorry, but I signed it wrong.
So you want to be on the Gibson, not on the cell, is that correctly? All right.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
You
same
are this
thing
way.
with me.
All right, hang
Would
on
you
one
like to go
second.
first?
Let me-
'Cause you-
No, go ahead.
I followed you. I just
Okay,
put my
so-
signature right behind
Lee
yours.
Foster, you're on
Where you
Gibson,
going?
Gibson, please.
and you are
Edward.
Edward. Edward, go for this one, goes over here. Okay, go ahead, Lee.
Okay, you got it.
Go ahead.
Actually, thank you. Thank you all. The comments I'm going to leave with you anyway, so you can review what I was going to say. But I want to know whether or not this has actually been rescinded. So that the intermunicipal agreement that you had with Southampton that was proposing these changes, has that actually been rescinded?
No,
Meaning,
meaning that we're gonna handle the beach.
so we could look forward to maybe another argument next year?
Anytime you get a change of boards,
No, I'm just asking.
Or
Yeah.
complaints.
I'm just
the parking
asking.
is controlled by vehicle and traffic law, which the village
I
can
understand
change at any
that, but
time.
this really literally sits with Southampton as was the original agreement in August, i.e. what you were proposing for the control of Gibson Beach, am I correct?
There's two different things. There's a maintenance and there's a vehicle and traffic law.
The maintenance you've made very clear, the vehicle and traffic law,
Not changing.
all right, see you next year. Thank you. Thank you for these comments anyway.
Edward?
Yeah, so, I wanna thank you for finding a way to please the.
No, it's really a
It's,
matter of, you know, how do you satisfy everybody? I'm still gonna get complaints.
I think it's incumbent a little bit on us to deal with more difficult. Make sure that when we park a little bit closer one to another, so we have more space. When we see someone who has a party in the evening over the beach and doesn't clean, gently to bring the next morning to the attention. And I notice also that the catering company who provided just dump their own things in the garbage. So no wonder that you have the next day. So I think it's incumbent to every one of us in a gentle way to bring to the attention on this system.
We agree.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'd like to add, I'm from the Zoom.
hold on one second. So that is the list from the in-house. No one else wants to speak to Gibson? Bill, you want to go to Zoom now?
Sure.
Okay, so those on Zoom who want to speak to Gibson, just give me your name and your address and you may speak.
Thanks. I'm Nancy Alderman at 500 Sagaponic Road. And I thank you all for listening to the constituents and for being willing to work for the community. I would just like you to know that I appreciate you've come to this decision, but I'd like you to acknowledge that it's because of the uproar and of the community. And that your lack of transparency has been really upsetting. And when you talk about you went to the press only as a result of the uproar of the community. And I really hope that going forward, you will be more forthcoming for all of these issues. The other thing I just want to ask about is there's a gate at Gibson, which is relatively new for all of us old timers. And that gate was to prohibit vehicles, which I appreciate, but it was to open to be able to allow an emergency vehicle to go on. And that the way the sand has shifted now, I don't believe a vehicle could drive onto the beach if there was an emergency. Is anything going to be done about that?
So I can speak to emergency vehicle in the fact that I'm an EMT. So we have no longer a regular car or truck that goes on the beach. It's something called the Polaris, which that is the emergency vehicle that we use. As far as the width goes, it can fit with what we have now. We would hope that, and I do believe that there is that that the chief has as well.
Yes, there's not spot on that case.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom want to speak regarding Gibson?
I'll speak. Hi, I just want to say,
Me.
I'm Katie Green. I live at 876 Seven Ponds Tab Road in Watermill. I'm a Southampton town resident, and I just want to say I very much, sorry?
Just a minute. Can you say your name again? It was too fast. I did not get it.
Sorry. Katie Green.
Green. Thank you, Katie. And you're from?
Southampton town. I'm on 876 Seven Ponds Tab Road.
There you go. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, I very much, I led a few years ago a petition to with the dogs, when there was an attempt to ban the dogs. And when we spoke to the board at that point, there was a hostility about all of it. And I just wanted to say that I very appreciate the tone that's been taken today and your willingness to listen to all of us. I know, I'm not a Sagaponack Village resident, but I'm friends with lots of people who are, and I know for village residents, being able to have friends come to the beach is an important thing. And so, and I mean, your ambulance services, police officers, we're all part of kind of a broader community. And I just wanted to say thank you for taking time to listen to all of us.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom wish to speak? Okay. All right now. That seems to be the Gibson.
Our attorney want to address all of us?
Yes.
Give us a lecture on law.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Egan, I'm the village attorney. I just wanted to speak a little bit on the cell tower. I feel that there's been a bit of frustration in the room in the silence from the board in the face of questions. So I wanted to put some truths out there in this discussion, more so than untruths that have been out there. And I say untruths because I don't believe that they're purposeful. I would certainly not think that our neighbors and friends would mislead us in any way. And perhaps it's from lack of knowledge. But let me clarify some of these points. First, if anyone's seen this is an absolute deception. If anyone saw this and they're here because of it, they should be upset. Because that is not what the pole is prepared. That is a 1990s version. That is what the pole is going to look like. The color is actually going to be a little lighter. But where this came from, this is not sourced from the village. I do not know what the source of this was, but this is not accurate. And with that as context, I'd like to speak just a little bit about it. As how did we get here? One of the untruths is that there was no public input and the process was broken. That's an untruth because this was not done in the dark and everyone did have a right to.
Where is everybody?
So,
Come on. I
Excuse me, can you please?
think we won.
Well, running them off.
I'm on mute. I don't know how to do
what were the facts of the discussion? So the facts of the discussion was that there was a presentation in October last year. There was a presentation in December of last year saying, right here at the board meeting, there were 2 emails that went out, February 5th and February 6th, to over 600 village residents by email, saying, please come down and discuss this with us. Please come down. We had 3 in-person presentations. October 11th, February 14th, which was the meeting we encouraged people to come to, and then March 20th. The room was unanimous in support of it. Unanimous. Not one dissenting voice of all the people that came, and granted, it was not nearly as large as this. Not one dissent, no opposition. And I'm not going to ask, but I'm going to assume how many people have a cell phone in their pocket. I'm sure everyone does. Your cell phone should be perhaps a health concern, but we're going to get to that because that's also an untruth. But if you've got a cell phone, you recognize that it's a modern necessity of life, that why there's no opposition to this proposal originally. Now let's go to some code untruths. There have been topics of the code. The fact is, the code untruth, the proposal was done completely in compliance with the code. And it's not just our guests, but it's also, and anyone else who opposes it, by the way, has missed their time to challenge in court. But the cell phone tower company went through the same process, and they're not going to make a mistake in the way that it was approved. And why did it end up here? People always ask, why here? Under the village code, section 233(7), there is a priority preference in location ranking. The first one being co-location in an existing tower. That makes sense, right? Stop the proliferation of towers to co-locate to an existing tower. That's one. Not an option available to the village of Sagaponic. 2, an existing tall structure. There really isn't any tall structures in the village of Sagaponic, blessedly. But look at the other villages. Village of Southampton has a hospital to put it on. They have a 3-story village hall. There are options to them. We don't have that option. So 1 and 2 are out. What's the third? Municipal public property, which is here. Last piece being a lot of 20 or more acres. Now we looked at the white parcel. We did. It was suggested as a location. It's explicitly stated in the covenant, no cell towers, period. That's exactly what it says, not stretch. That's what it says. And the last is other property. But we were able to get it here in the fit on the parcel behind us. There also was a question that was raised last time about a 750-foot setback. That is not a requirement in the code. Under 233(6), it lists the application, you must list residential structures, which is true, but the only setback that actually exists in the village code is 500 feet from a historic structure. That is in compliance. That location is in compliance. Now let's also talk about that the village can oppose this. The village can stop this. Stop, right? Stop. That's an untruth. It's an untruth. The truth is that the federal government only says we can manage location, but can't stop it on the basis of health. I'll give you a quote. Don't believe me. Don't believe me. Test this yourselves. Quote, no state or local government may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions. 47 USC 332 FCC law. I welcome anyone here to look it up. It's clear. And if they're not convinced, look at the United States District Court Eastern District versus the Town of Huntington, Abraham versus Town of Huntington, where the court held you cannot do it on the basis of health. Maybe we'd like to, but we don't have that option. As the littlest municipality, the lowest level municipality in the nation as a village, the federal government said, do not consider that. You can't. Lastly, the untruth about can we stop 5G? Stop 5G. Don't bring 5G. That was one of the technological setbacks, actually, back to coconuts. But set 5G. We can't do that either. FCC ruling 18-133/2018. No discretion to regulate technology choices of federal licensed wireless carriers. The last untruth, and this one to me is particularly painful on the distortion, is the untruth that it's injurious to health of the community. The truth is, there is no legitimate science to support that. This board didn't go into this willy-nilly with their eyes closed, recklessly, as people think. That's not true. This board requested and asked for a radio frequency expert to have a radio frequency compliance report available. It is available here in Village Hall. It was available at the previous public hearings. You may request it from the village clerk at any time. She'd be delighted to do it even outside of a FOIL. What does that say? It says that, and there are, including in this and in other mailings that came, words like significant concerns. Those can't be good enough in the face of science. I know I sound like a national debate moderator, but it can't be good enough in the face of scientific reports that say the maximum permissible exposure is 100, and this is going to be less than a third, and that's the maximum, less than a third, which is a healthy exposure. These are legitimate experts, not Dr. Google, not some unreliable hysteria, but a basis for a health concern is not the purview of this board, and they can't do it. But assuming that we're not even satisfied with that, let's assume that we are in a government conspiracy zone, or we feel that that report was in the pocket of the cell phone tower, and that expert, that radio frequency expert, was not good. Let's go with somebody we all can trust. The American Cancer Society. This report is also out there. No distortion. This is the truth. This is the American Cancer Society, not some deep dive Google that you may find on the dark web somewhere, but it's available here. What do they say? Right up. Do cell phone towers cause cancer? First, the energy level of radio frequency waves is relatively low, especially when compared with the types of radiation that are known to increase cancer, such as gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet light. The second issue has to do with wavelength. RF waves have long wavelengths, which can only be concentrated to about 1 inch or 2 in size. This makes it unlikely that the energy from RF waves could be concentrated enough to affect individual cells in the body. Third, even if RF waves are somehow able to affect cells in the body at higher doses, the level of RF waves present at ground level is very low, well below the recommended limits. This is a stunning conclusion that lawyers love to hedge on maybe, probably, depends. Here's the American Cancer Society being very clear. For these reasons, most scientists agree that cell phone antennas or towers are unlikely to cause cancer. The amount of exposure from living near a cell phone tower is typically many times lower than the exposure from using a cell phone. Which brings you back to how many people have a cell phone in their pockets right now. So, and that's, don't take the village board's word for it, think the American Cancer Society. And they go on to other comments of, do cell phone towers cause any other health problems, et cetera, as well detailed that there is not. And lastly, why I feel that the distortion of significant concerns and trumping it up into a health concern should be most troublesome to all of us as neighbors when we consider the public safety effects of not having reliable cell phone. Because the truth is, don't distort on significant concerns or health. The truth is that public safety requires us to have it as a part of modern life. Would you take a long road trip without a cell phone? I'm not working for the cell phone company, by the way. I'm just trying to set truths out. Have you ever had a greater panic when you must get a call and your signal comes up as SOS? I can't tell you that of a greater panic than that happening. But let's go beyond Star Wars fantasy and Dr. Google medical finds, and let's talk about real concerns. The concerns and needs of your neighbor. A person at the last hearing, amazingly, testified that they were concerned about third arms on children. Third arms. I can't take that serious, and neither can this board. When it looks at public safety concerns, even since that hearing, of real concerns that your neighbors are having. A woman slips in her driveway, can't get a reliable cell signal, injured in her driveway. an individual is having a seizure on the beach, has to essentially daisy chain their communications down the beach to try to get to a reliable cell phone signal. Explain to that person what the concern was. A person's missing child in another state, they're on a call with the law enforcement officials in that state, and the phone keeps dropping. I can't imagine a worse scenario, and I would just submit that with this board's responsibility, the preeminent concern of every municipality, and the prime concern should be public safety, should be people's public safety. It should be the prime concern. It's this board's motivator, the concern that whatever concerns might be out there, they looked at it, they considered it, they evaluated it, and they weighed in on the side of enhanced public safety. It's important, it's modern, it's necessary, and the reports back it up. Thank you for your patience in letting me get through that. I appreciate it. I just wanted to get the truth versus the untruth on the record, and I thank the board for its time.
Mayor, I have two people signed up on the public input. Would you like to hear from them?
Sure.
The first one is Karina Forrest.
May my lawyer speak first and then me?
Alex Creekman, 279 Main Street, Sag Harbor, and I represent some residents who are opposed to the cell tower. And I wasn't planning to speak today, but I'm going to speak now. This board, you should be ashamed of yourself. I appear before boards all over the East End. I've never seen an attorney behave this way. The job of a village attorney should be to provide legal advice to you, the counsel. And if you've made a decision and you think that's the right decision, you should be willing to defend it yourself rather than to have someone get up and scream and yell. So I would call on each of you to defend your own decision. This man should be recused from this matter and replaced with someone who's going to give you legal advice, not just be a mouthpiece.
Are you a lawyer?
Yes,
Are you a lawyer?
Of course he is.
Are you a
Yes,
lawyer?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Karina?
So I'm Karina Forrest. I live at 212 Old Sag Harbor Road in Southampton. But my family owns Loaves and Fishes. We have for 44 years the business, but we rent there. I'd like to start. It's been wonderful for me to see how I feel a dialogue on an issue can be. And I see that you all care very much about your jobs, of what you're doing here, coming to help better the community. I see that. And I'd like to clarify that I don't want to vilify anyone here. That is not my intention for me. And I think the people in this room have probably been getting my newsletters that I've been sending out every week. Like I have a real stake in the game. It's my daughter and it's my babies to come and it's my employees. There are many studies that show that these cell towers and also other radio frequency establishments and long-term exposure do cause cancer. They cause oxidative stress. There are many things. And in my next subsequent newsletter, I will share with you my sources so you can hear them, because I've had a few people come to me and ask, where are your sources? Where is this information? Where is that coming from? I'm not Googling. Like, I'm not just going with what does the AI say? What is Siri saying? Like, I have legitimate concern. I was leaving it up to the people who I've been addressing at this point to do their own independent investigation, because I believe in the truth of that. I believe in somebody going out to study something and get the facts themselves. I believe in their understanding growing with what they're looking at themselves. I have faith in all of you as intelligent, independent people, everyone here. As far as transparency, the word public hearing, both words, public hearings, was mentioned several times, but I've had conversations with Rhodey that there were no public hearings, that there were public meetings, that there was never any notification in the paper about this specific notice. And yes, there were emails sent out to 600 residents. How many residents are there in Sagaponic? Many more than 600. How many of those emails actually go to those people who live here? It's been made clear to me from conversations I've had with the clerk that that's not the issue here, that many of those emails don't go through or the people don't receive them. I've had many people call me, email me, text me, have conversations, show up at Los Angeles and ask, how did this happen? How did we get here? Because they had no idea. And I want to say, I'm not against cell service. I agree that there could be better cell service out here, but I think there are better alternatives that don't put my establishment, my friends who live 30 feet away from the cell tower, the other residents who are within a very close proximity of this, not to mention the drop zone that they're in as well, especially Susanna, who lives on the Foster's property, are within the drop zone of this if it falls. I have concern for these people who are going to be directly impacted by this. And I wish our conversations had been as it has been, and I've seen now where you have talked back and forth about Gibson Beach. I love that you've done that. I thank you. That's amazing. I see that you care. I really care about this. I know I'm not a resident of Sagaponic, but we've been paying the taxes here through our landlords. That bill comes to us. They don't pay it, we do, for 44 years. And I've been serving this community. A lot of people in this room are people who shop at Loaves and Fishes, who have seen me grow up. And now I have a daughter and I have to protect her. And I don't want to move Loaves and Fishes. That is very difficult. My grandmother started that business. But I have to protect my family, my friends, this is my community too, okay? Like, I grew up here. I went to school in Southampton. I live here now. And I just want to find a better way. And there has been conversation about where am I? Why am I late to the game? I don't live here. And so I didn't receive one of those 600 emails that were sent out. I only found out about this after my supposed window of 90 days passed. And so when I found out, I've been doing everything I can. I've been handing petitions to you. I haven't heard anything about that. I have handed, I think, 8 or 9 pages of petitions signed from residents and other Southampton town residents who are opposed to this location. I have more piling up at Loaves and Fishes. I have a whole coalition of people who stand behind me. A lot of people could not make it here, but I do know that people have been writing to you. I've been trying to talk to the board members. I've been trying to have conversations. I've been trying to find a way forward. I haven't really received any information other than the few chances I've had to bump into somebody and they've either taken the second to talk to me, but I'm just looking for a better way forward that isn't going to harm people. And I don't think you want to do that either. And I understand we're in a difficult position. I understand that I'm late to the game. And I've been told that this is very challenging and that there's very slim hope. But I think you can understand the gravity of what is at stake here for me. And it's not just my body and myself. It's a lot more than that. So I can't do this alone. And I've said that since the beginning. I'm here for questions, comments, anything. I don't want to fight you. I understand that the picture that was created was not right, but just to be clear, it hasn't been completely transparent. Is it a monopole? Is it a monopine? What is it? Now we know it's that. 100-foot pole. For me, it's not so much the site. For me, it's about who it's going to impact. Because the studies that have been done are short-term, not long-term. And this is what, a 55-year contract? Let's see what we look like in 55 years. My children, your grandchildren. Please. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, if there's anything you would like to say to me, as it seems nobody up here wants to talk to me really outside of this. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Radiation is not within our purview. We're not given that option. We are a subsidiary organization. We have a set of rules that we can operate under. This is how we have to make decisions. I know it's your concern. I've seen all these things. And you know, the American Cancer Society, you know, when I go back a page on that, they say that when your cell phone heats up, that's going through you, and that it's more radiation than what comes out of the tower. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but that's who are you going to believe? You know, I've seen a lot of the stuff you're talking about. I've got friends who are very paranoid about all this stuff, but we're not allowed to make a decision on that basis. So why don't you let somebody else speak? I think you've run through. Okay, I mean, we try to limit it to a couple minutes, so we're not here all night. I mean, I appreciate your motion, but
Thank you.
Can I speak? I'm on the Zoom.
Hold on 1 second. Roman. His support.
Well, just speaking of the Wolford Estate.
could you sing this for us? We don't want words, we want songs, okay?
Well, there's lots of employees, there's different businesses, the stable, the winery, and it's an essential thing that the cell phones work. There's lots of times employees complain left and right when they have lunch break in their car and the cell phones don't work. We hear it from customers, we hear it from family members.
This summer, I tried to call for at Staples to help somebody who had fallen off the horse, and I could not get cell phone service, and she had a serious fall. That is unacceptable in these times. We can't run businesses, can't do anything, we can't function. It is a normal way of life.
Just give us your name.
Joey Wolf.
You know, so
I'm just, we're in support, and we thank you, and we agree with you, and I hate fake news.
it's not a big thing that's from a visual point of view. It's certainly, you know, it's very limited the impact. The rest health wise, nobody knows, but in our case, we certainly have a big problem that the cell phones don't work. It's just an essential thing for the body.
Thank you.
Okay,
For
no one else.
clarity in my comment about singing this, Roman is a great tenor. So I didn't know if he was gonna make a song out of it. Thank you. Don't mean to embarrass you.
There was no one else signed up here to speak. So, go to Zoom now?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Really? Okay.
I just wanted to ask for some clarity on the code. Sorry, Mary Lee Foster, 730 Side Main Street. I believe it was clarified that, did you say a cell phone tower couldn't be within 500 feet of a historic structure?
Correct.
But isn't Side Main Street a historic district?
Right, but it's not a structure. That's correct, but it's not a structure, it's not a building, it's not a residence, it's not a.
But it's a
barn.
but it is a concept.
Absolutely.
I understand that it was between a structure and, but I think that a historic district is a concept, like, for example, I go back to the zoning board where you can't allow a certain gate. That's because it impacts the historic district. Gates aren't actually structures either. So that's just a thought I had about that. I also understand that there's a lot of discussion about the danger, the non-danger. And I guess because my family has the luxury of owning the adjacent property on 3 sides, and I really do mean that as a luxury, because as we all know, it's some of the most beautiful farmland in the entire country, and so we have we have a house here that I've been lucky enough to be able to recruit employees that are, you know, in some ways would probably be beyond our reach unless we could be able to supply housing. And so when my employees moved into this house, they had one kind of house, but the introduction of the cell phone tower in the neighborhood kind of changes the caliber of that housing. I think in the words of the mayor at the last meeting, he mentioned how a cell phone tower, it might have been in jest, couldn't go next to a mansion. That would never be permissible. I might not have the exact wording of that, but I think what he was really referring to is that the owner of a mansion would immediately have responded to such a prospect. In our case, I think that I regret that we didn't immediately act to protect our assets from an undesirable change in the neighborhood. But I don't regret continuing to talk about this and continuing to look. And I understand what the village can and can't do, but again, I guess I go back to the community and say, you know, there still may be better places for this. In fact, as soon as the summer was over, probably most people noticed that their cell phones started working again. And one of the specialists I spoke to he was sort of incredulous that they were putting a tower up here because our population is actually so small. And he said, well, why don't they just put up a hog or something like that? And he said, what they are is they're seasonal. They go up, they're temporary, they're actually on trucks, and then they go away when they're not needed. They use them at sporting events, they use them in at I think Jones, that kind of thing. And so again, I want the cell phone tower to not be here, obviously, but I also just really want to be able for us to continue to endeavor to find a better location for this in our community that isn't 30 feet, 90 feet from the front door of a residence in a historic district. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Carl, shave your hand up first. Nancy Dunlap, do you have an answer, right?
Hi, I'm Nancy Dunlap. I live at 93 Sag Road, and I'm married to Warren Dunlap, and he's lived there for 60 years. He's unfortunately 92, still hanging on, but I appreciate everybody's concern about their own families. My family is as important to me, and the fact that I can't call an ambulance at night for Warren, and I'm not, you know, foolish enough to not have a hard line, but in a storm, the internet goes out. And I'd be really unhappy if Warren died upstairs at our house. But the thing that I'm most concerned with is that this board, who's been elected by us and worked very, very hard on our behalf, Mr. Egan should be humiliated for what I really don't understand. He represents the board. They asked him to speak. He's doing his job on all of our behalf. And so I want to thank Mr. Egan and the board. If you really want to go after somebody, I think you should really look at the FCC. They're the people that set the rules for this and the compliance. And what I've read, I'm a lawyer, I don't practice this kind of law, but I just find it very, you know, unfair to not realize that there are different compelling arguments here. And we just have to try and be good neighbors to everybody. And I want to thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robin Foster. I live on the Toppings Path in Bridgehampton, but I'm part of Foster Farm, and farm that was here in Sagaponic that was certainly founded by my ancestors. I just have a couple of questions. One is that could you have said no? Or did the government come in here and just twist your arm and say, you have to put it here, you can't do anything about it? Okay. The other question is that if it was 30 or 90 feet from your front door,
would you be willing to live there? Would you be happy? Because I feel like if that's the case, then perhaps you should have allowed that. Also too, I understand as far as, people, being worried about being in their home, but most people either have a hard line, they don't have a cable line, they generally have Verizon, and I have to say Verizon has been pretty good as far as it still works in a storm.
Not
I've lived on Topping's
Not at
Path,
all.
I've lived on Topping's Path for 35 years, and I have not had one problem with my regular phone.
every day.
Okay, well, unfortunately, if you have a cell phone, it's a problem, because I don't have cell phone coverage where I live, that's fine. But I just wanna know if you guys, if you guys could have said no.
Okay, is that it? Oh, sorry.
Well, just, if you follow the, I don't know, you have to read the papers. If you follow what went on at St. Peter's Chapel out in Springs, they're affiliated with St. Luke's Church, and they were very low on funding. And they were approached about putting a cell tower in their steeple. And I don't know all the footwork. They eventually put up a 70-foot tower behind the chapel in Springs. And it was highly contested. I don't know if you follow that, but East Hampton interests me. 8 years, the town of East Hampton ran them around through planning boards and this and that, and probably spent a tremendous amount of money on lawyers. And finally, the cell tower company sued them. And it was in the paper sometime this year that they were, the judge told them that the tower had to go up and they could not deny service. I think it's referred to as denial of service. You know, like a municipality can't say, well, you can't run phone poles down the street to go to somebody's house. And now for some reason, cell phones have become an essential service. I'm probably not using the right terms. And you can't deny service. So the cell tower companies, somehow or other, there was going to be a tower here in Sagaponack. We could spend probably multiple times our current budget fighting it. And eventually, at the end of several years, a tower would go someplace. And I didn't see a problem with here because at least the taxpayers get the benefit. And we were assured that the coverage would go to the beach and over to Wainscott. So it would cover the whole area.
So the government's still strong.
What?
The government still strong armed you, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So you didn't have a choice then. Okay.
This is on New Street. I'm sorry. What is the New Street?
I can't hear you. I'm
Revenue.
What?
Revenue.
Oh, it's somewhere. I mean, I think,
It's in the contract. If you want to stop in, there is a revenue stream from the tower, yes. So it depends on how many carriers, it's per carrier. There are 4 carriers. There is space for 4 carriers on this tower. So.
I just want to know, are there carriers signed up?
We
You
don't,
We don't know.
we don't know. I got people on Zoom that want to speak. Bill, do you want me to go to Zoom?
Sure.
Whoever wanted to speak on Zoom?
Yes, I could speak. Is that okay?
Yes, go right ahead. Just state your name and. where you-
Okay. So I'm Allison Weiner. My husband Jeffrey Shackner and I are at 37 Sag Main Street, and we actually just purchased the property. We've been, out east for many, many years, but we just purchased this property last June. I just want to say, we're talking about truths and untruths. We were never notified of the meetings, and basically the tower is, in our backyard. I guess you didn't have my email address, but I do receive a tax bill, and it could have easily been mailed to me. So that is, we certainly being a property that backs up onto this, we should have been notified. And every effort should have been made to notify us. because, you know, whether I believe that it's harmful to me personally or not, it certainly impacts the value of my property. So, you know, that was just disappointing to us. And, you know, while I understand, you know, this was a convenient location for you to put this tower because it's obviously property that you know, the town owns, and it's easy to kind of go through with that contract. I'm not really sure, considering that, you know, that there are so many adjacent homeowners, that this was the best location. So, it's just been disappointing for me to learn about this so late in the game. Again, being one of the properties that backs right up on this.
Thank you for showing up.
So, yes, I mean, now that I'm aware of this, I'm certainly going to show up at everything, but, and I would have shown up to the other, meetings as well, but I had been not aware. And again, this, you know, I mean, I'm on Sag Main, but the back of my property is, you know, basically right where the tower is. So, I feel like you know, more of an effort should have been made to notify me. So I'm assuming there are other people who are not notified as well. So
I never received an email. I was just down the road. Never. I received other emails,
Okay.
but I never received it.
Can you state your name?
Michael Lowenthal.
Want to step up and make a speech?
No, that's fine.
No? Okay.
Just want to let you know that I never received an email.
and I appreciate the position that you're in, but I think that perhaps, you know, the location could be explored further is my thinking.
And just to be clear on emails, I am the one that collects them. I rely on the taxpayer to give it to me. I don't go to each property owner and ask them for it. When I send out the tax bills, there is a little thing on the bottom of the tax bills to ask you to please give me that information so that when we do send these out, I have your correct email information. Some people are very good at it, and every year they'll make sure that I have their most up-to-date email. Some people don't. Some people are LLCs, some go to an accountant. So
But we would not have received a tax bill. You know, we had not even received our first tax bill when those.
I understand that. You and I have had the conversation in the office.
So now you have our email.
Yes, I do. And that's what I'm trying to explain, that I am the one that does the email. So I don't get the right email from you. I can't do anything about it. So give it to me. So I'm saying.
People around there should be notified somehow, not by email.
That's misdirection by the board. Otherwise, so.
You have my email because I
We're talking
received
about
other
my
emails
email.
from you, but I never received an email regarding.
I received that. Thank you, Laura.
I just think that the properties, especially the ones that were directly adjacent, and I haven't looked into this that deeply, but maybe I will. But I feel like at least the adjacent properties, there should be an obligation to notify us.
Thank you. Want to move on?
Yeah. Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
I'm Michael Koch. I'm a resident here for 35 years. I lived in the city as primary resident, then moved out here during COVID. I raised my kids that are 26 and 28 in the city. Building right in front of us had all kinds of antenna, and including cell towers. They're healthy, they're smart, no issues. If anybody lives in the city and has health concerns, they would all have to leave because there are cell towers all over the place. Nobody is affected by it. I have zero concern about health. However, I do have a concern about Verizon. My Verizon landline out here is not working, you know, like there's always static, you can't make a phone call. I had service technicians here 10 times. They tell me, well, finally somebody was honest, you know what? It's never gonna get better. These lines are deteriorating. You know, there's something that can really be done, and I'm sorry about it, but that's how it is. And so I'm asking, I'm thanking the board for moving us into the 20th century by having cell service finally coming, because we do need it as a life necessity for business, for communication, for health reasons, and all other reasons that we know about. you're gonna get more radiation here from the cell phone than you get from the cell tower. And if you don't have a cell signal, that phone has so much radiation that you don't need to be concerned about the cell tower. So thank you, board, for making a brave decision and a smart decision. I really appreciate it.
We're done? Okay.
Anybody else who wants to speak? Good.
Thanks, John French, I live at 65 Sag Road. I got here a little late, so I'm not gonna waste your time discussing location. But is there a guarantee this thing's gonna actually help cell phone service? You look at the one that used to be in Home Sweet Home, you can stand right underneath it with a cell phone, it didn't work. So is there a guarantee that this is actually gonna improve our cell phones? Besides locations, there's many locations that this can be put at. Unfortunately, yes, the village is gonna make some money off of it this way. I was offered $15,000 a month to put it on my property. So that's, I don't know how many, that was just for one company, so I imagine you guys are making more money on that. But what about other locations? I know there's an issue with putting it on farmland. I know there's an issue. What about the dump, the old dump? What about the popping basic vinyl on Poxbach Pond? But again, I wasn't here earlier, so I imagine this is all discussed, but is there any guarantee that by putting this thing up, we're gonna actually get some of this?
We'll find out.
No guarantee.
They told us they showed us a coverage map and it goes out to the ocean and.
Yeah, we got the same thing in Home Sweet Home, and that didn't work out either. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to say one more thing and then you guys can go. I think in light of all of the deliberation and certainly some of that which was obfuscated, i.e. not in plain sight, is that I'm holding out for obsolescence because I've been watching, I guess it's SpaceX, and they're putting up low orbit satellites. Multiple. And the last was Vandenberg, California, 23 satellites, 13 of which were direct to cell. So let's give it 2 years and then maybe we will see it come down.
What kind of radiation comes out of those satellites?
I have no idea, but guess what? They're doing it. We're not doing it.
So I'll make one comment about that. You're correct. Technology is changing incredibly fast. And it wouldn't surprise me if these towers are obsolescent soon. So let's hope that happens without any radiation.
And then it comes down.
And then it comes down.
One more out there.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to be clear, that's very true, the technology and science changes constantly. But this is what we're living with now. You live with the constraints of the rules and regulations that you are required to abide by. And I respect that someone does abide by rules and regulations. But right now, I appreciate that someone wants to stall and wait and see what new comes about. But at the moment, I can't get service to call for an ambulance if I need it. And I'm not willing to wait 2 years or 5 years where my needs will probably increase rather than decrease. I also run a business from home, my husband and I, and there are countless times that we lose a connection, which is embarrassing to say the least and quite inefficient in terms of running business. In addition to that, my Verizon landline, which I have not given up either, as a backup, seems to be less reliable than a cell phone service because at least once a year I have to wait 6 weeks for Verizon to show up to find out that a squirrel ate the wire down three roads away, and I didn't have that either. So I'd like to say thank you to the board for being brave and for accomplishing this. And I think it benefits the community, and my heart goes out to the people that are not content with that decision because of their fears. I can't judge those fears, but I think as a community, this will be an extraordinary benefit.
Thanks.
We're done?
Else?
We're done. Make a motion to set the next meeting for
Oh,
October
hold on.
16th. Oh.
I'd like to call an executive meeting to discuss some legal matters with counsel.
So you're gonna do a a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal matters with counsel.
Okay. Thank you.
Second, so Bill, that's the motion you made?
Yep.
Gary, second, okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Dave. Okay, all those on, Zoom, I'm knocking out.
So we're gonna.